we only need the Cardi B song. However, we can't have any song but the Cardi B song. It's in the script.
What I thought would be great, before we start talking about Sirens, is like what All About Eve means to you when you first saw it. I mean, I know we'll talk about this in a bit, but you hadn't seen it for a while. But Molly, I'm going to start with you. What was your first time? Like, what do you remember about All About Eve?
Well, I went to NYU with Colin, and it was definitely part of our curriculum at the time to watch it. I will say that I'd forgotten how funny it was. And so when we started work on Sirens and this very specific tone of Sirens, it was refreshing because it's so funny, but also it's really dark. So it's all the kind of things. But it's also just the way it tells a story that's cyclical and haunting, but also like we were all laughing. So, we really just admire the tone of it. And our director, Nikki Cassell, who's not here because she's in New York, but she talked about it constantly early on too. So it was really exciting to watch it again on the screen, too, and hear all of our giggles. It's good.
Colin, what about for you? What was your intro to All About Eve?
Well, yes, we saw it in graduate school together. But the thing that I remembered and seeing it now in kind of connection for me to Sirens is the powerful female roles in that, and how strong they are, and how interesting they are, and how flawed they are. That was really kind of what I remember about it and connecting with it again.
Catherine, what about for you?
I think I first saw it in high school sometime, but I didn't remember it well, so I watched it again earlier this week, and then again tonight. It's a brilliant film, and again, the humor is the thing that really struck me, especially watching with an audience. Yeah. But comparing it to Sirens, it's really interesting to think about how some of the tropes of how we portray women in media, we were playing with and trying to, say that women are more a product of their circumstance or something. Whereas this, I think, you can tell that it's written and directed by men in a way that ours wasn't, I think we're a little bit more compassionate towards our villain, and we play with that in a way that this film is a little bit more straightforward.
We're totally going to talk about that because I think, Sirens is that ambiguity, like, are they really evil? But no, and, what is their motive again, which does come back to All About Eve. What about for you, Greg? What was your?
I hardly remembered the film until I think watching it on PBS with my dad when I was a teenager. I think it was the last time I saw it. The thing that struck me watching it now is, one, it was extremely funny, but I'm not too sure if it's funnier now, because now I'm laughing at also the datedness of certain types of the stereotypes we're talking about, but also its view of it's sort of looking down on the view of like the created identity of stars and the whole architecture of everything, which is like the created identity of the powerful characters in Sirens, and the parallels were kind of amazing, and the tone of it was I was probably laughing too loud out there, but
yeah, we can go full spoiler territory when we talk about Sirens, but you'd mentioned none of you had seen it till I guess this week or today or recently. Were you surprised, and you've sort of touched on it, how close the parallels were to All About Eve? And I guess it's like this influence it's had over the years on you subconsciously.
Yeah, I think it's clear it's had a subconscious influence on this creative team, but also on all of us, right? Like, I don't know, I was very struck that Simone in Sirens, I think the show sort of asked you to decide if she's a monster or not. We worked really hard to sort of not tip it, in the film, it's pretty. I think it's pretty clear. I think, right? Eva's not good, right? but I think it was great to rewatch it, and that just to think about the way we crafted Simone, and how I wonder actually if it would have been, it would have felt a little easy, I think, if Simone was so clearly black and white a monster. So I don't know. I was sort of studying how they did that in the film and really admiring it, but also kind of like I'm glad we didn't make that exact choice. I'm glad we left it a little bit of a puzzle for the audience to solve. At least I think so. What do you guys think?
Yeah, because Eve is like diabolical.
Yeah,
like,
like-
and when,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
she turns at the end, that look in her face, like, wouldn't it be terrible with that? It's kind of like all planned from the beginning with her.
Yeah, she's a sort of traditional villain.
Yeah.
And I think Simone has ingredients of that, but we try to have more fun.
I thought it was interesting, the backstory for each of them. Like we find out, that Eve has been lying about her backstory and kind of covering up a darker, sadder story. And with Simone in Sirens, she is lying about her past, but it's actually a really sad, and it's almost like kind of opposite. She's trying to hide the darkness because she doesn't want to talk about it, while I think Eve is manipulating her background to get a foot in the door, which I thought was really interesting. And also just the correlations between Betty Davis and Julianne Moore, to me, just like the presence and strength and power that they both have, just seemed, I saw a lot of similarities.
We know Julie's a fan of the movie.
She was given it to watch as homework. All the actresses.
I
were.
believe that again, our director, Nikki Cassell, was talking about this film a lot, and I believe that she and the cast talked about it at length and watched it at length.
Yeah.
I can't testify to that, but I do believe that's what happened.
Well, speaking of Simone, and I've said this, I said this to you before we came in here, that I really love the ending. Simone, with the house. Talk about writing that sequence and the ambiguity of it all, but also shooting it, and because the cinematography of that is beautiful, and then cutting that sequence of what you wanted to say. Like, take us back and dissect it for us.
Well, I will say that Colin and I were working on the finale while we were shooting. That's not always the case. When you shoot a miniseries, a lot of times it's all written in advance. We like to make everyone really nervous, and we don't do that. We like to withhold the script until the last possible moment. But not to be mean, just because we are actually doing our job, which is we are watching what happens on set, we are watching the performances with the actors, and we're responding in real time. So Colin and I were on set when we shot the scene in the pilot where Michaela's out on the cliff, and it's one of the first shots it's actually the first shot of the pilot that Greg shot. And when we saw that shot, we were like, oh gosh, that's the end of the show. It will be the same shot with Simone out there. And it was like this little secret that we had, that we were writing towards that while we were writing it. But it was also inspired by Greg's beautiful shot. So kind of very organic.
Yeah, and the location and trying to find like where Julianne's perch would be or where she would be and all that. I guess one thing about the finale was it's like her performance at the end is both kind of like it's oddly heartbreaking but also empowering and all these colorful things in her face, in Simone's face. But we really wanted to get, ideally, doing it at sunset for me is great because it's also like, it's kind of always the darkest before the dawn idea, but also it's about to get dark, which is also something about sunsets, which is kind of like foreboding in a way. And so having the whole thing set at sunset was great, and it was really tricky over a couple days to do that, sitting on the ferry on a different day. And we just got a great sunset, which we didn't always get. It was a pretty cloudy summer, and we get a lot of scenes in the backyard were pretty murky and drizzly. Even Julianne Moore's first day was raining, but that all just came together, and we had the perfect sun for the perfect little moment at the end there.
Yeah, and I also think you were talking about like making changes as the show was coming together on set. On the page, Julianne on the cliff was not the beginning of the pilot, and that happened pretty early in the editing process of the pilot. In Nikki's director's cut, we moved that scene first. It became evident very quickly that that was the way to launch the series, and you guys responded to that too, I'm sure, because you had that cut. I think you had seen by the time that you were shooting 5. But I didn't cut episode 5, so I should mention that Laura Zempel and Jen Bryson cut it. They did an incredible job with that sequence, and I really love how, you're not quite sure what Simone's smile means. It's a little, you've said Mona Lisa before, and of course there were dozens of takes of her close up there, and I really think that you guys all really landed on the right one.
Yeah, Laura and Jen were like, this is the one. This is Mona Lisa, and the gold is just crossing her face in that
Right.
horrifying way. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I want to come back to you, Catherine, because, like, you know, I said, like, this whole series, like, you if you haven't seen it and you want to watch one episode, trust me, you'll end up staying up all night to finish it, because these characters are so well written and they're so complex, and you're like, I just want to know what comes next. Talk about a scene that was like, you know, a challenge for you to cut, or something that you just enjoyed cutting, especially with these characters as they reveal themselves.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say any of it was truly a challenge. I mean, we had the best footage with the best actors, so it's generous when it's like that. It's a pleasure to put the scenes together. But I think the real thing the challenge that we faced was finding the balance of the tone and making sure that we weren't setting up anything that we didn't pay off too severely, even though we're sort of intentionally doing some misleads. But I would say, you know, the first scene where all three of them are together in the guest house when Devin first meets Michaela, and that, you know, the triangle between Devin and Simone, and then Michaela when she comes in, was really a fun scene to put together, because it just finally, you know, it's the first moment where we have our triangle of sirens, you know, and really being able to just narrow in on the dynamic between all three of them and the power that Michaela has over Simone, and Devin's clocking that, and just, yeah, that was a really great scene to put together.
Molly, coming back to you, I mean, you know, I spoke with you many years ago. It feels like many years ago when you did Maid, and, you know, coming to your work now on this, I love how you comment on class. Like, talk about that and exploring it, especially in the case of Sirens, and what you wanted to say.
Well, it's nice because my writing partner's here, so I can dump some of this on him. But, but you know, Maid was a deep dive on class, and coming out of Maid, we were a little depressed. Yeah.
It was dark. It was a dark journey. Yeah, yeah. Also a long shoot in rainy Canada. Yes, during COVID.
So we were inspired to talk about socioeconomics, but maybe to have a touch more fun, maybe a touch of more heightened world with some bright colors. But I think the class was really important to us, particularly when it comes to the story of the sisters and their father, because in America right now, it's we're taking care of our parents, and it's such a problem, and it's something like we aren't really talking about very much, but it is a socioeconomic issue, and where these characters come from, and the kind of great strain of trying to take care of an aging parent when you don't have money. And so we talked a lot about that.
And I remember Sirens is based on a play that Molly wrote, which comes from an experience that's always been very powerful for you of working in Martha's Vineyard and being on the working class around this kind of society and this money. It's just kind of a really stark relief that you can see those two things. So we were very interested in that world. And also just the color and the kind of splash and power that you get in Nantucket, I think was a big draw.
What was that like, taking, you know, a play that you had written and fleshing it out into, you know, this limited series?
I really recommend it. I mean, so the last time I adapted something was this award-winning memoir called Maid, which is a piece of literature. I mean, it's gorgeous. And so it was a deep honor for us to adapt it, but we felt very beholden to it, and also very, you know, we really wanted to do it justice. When you've written the IP and you've written it 15 years ago, it's really easy to be like, you know, this is garbage. Just throw it out. Take what you like, you know, and expand it. It's not precious. It's a really fun way to go about the writing process. So, in our case, the 5 characters in the play are the 3 women, Jose and Ethan. So we kept the 5 characters, but the play is 90 minutes long. So we had to sit down and flesh out the entire world, make it 5 hours long. We got to introduce Peter, the husband, who we hear about in the play, but we don't meet in the play. And then just also that we get to have a camera and, you know, get to have an editor, and like it's really a exciting way to try to tell a story, and very freeing. That was my experience.
It was terrible. No, part of it for me was Molly's play is beautiful, and to wanting to keep respecting that, but then we have to do something different. And eventually we're kind of, when we found Sirens, when we found the mythology as kind of a way to kind of take these amazing characters that were in Molly's play and kind of get a larger world and a larger story to them to fit in, that kind of released us a little bit. But it was always nice. We knew these, like I've been watching this play for 15 years as well, too. Like we feel like these characters are members of our family. So it was kind of fun to spend an extra 4 hours with them.
No, I love that. And Greg, I mean, as I said, your photography in this was beautiful. Talk about the visual story that you're telling, though, especially with Simone. Like, what are the hints that you're, whether it's the lighting or the colors that you're using when you're shooting her?
Well, I mean, Simone has she has the most kind of transitions into what's going on with her too, because she has a panic attack at the end of the episode, and so we get inside her head that way. So we tend to sort of change the environment, how we film things with her a little bit more than other characters. The big thing is also like take the point of view with the whole world from the kind of optimistic and aspirational view that she has of this thing. It's kind of bright and colorful and shadowless, but it also has an undertone of like, hidden suffering and stuff that's going on. And so to keep the whole world from that point of view, so it is the fish out of water for Megan's character to be, for Devin to be like, what the heck, this is crazy, right? This is not what it's supposed to be. But to try and keep that point of view with Simone, and also to really be close to her a lot of times. She can be very subtle with her face. She is in the last shot of the show, and one of my favorite scenes is also in the finale when she's in the car. She's had her panic attack, and they're taking her out, and she's just like quietly, like a tear comes down her cheek while she's watching the family, hearing the family fight over the current situation and how they're going to deal with it. That kind of stuff is just trying to be observational of that, and not always make the scene about like her reaction to things, because there's so much going on in her. The one big difference between this and the film tonight is that like you feel something for Simone. I don't think I feel anything for Eve. I was like, screw you, Eve. You know what I mean? Because Eve is like diabolical, but Simone is a broken person, and but still deep. That's what Molly writes is like a deep insight into people, right? Which is what's so fascinating, what makes it so compelling. So.
No, I love that. You do truly feel for Simone, and then Eve, you're just like, wow. But again, iconic character. Then let's compare that to Michaela and Julie. I mean, Julianne Moore is phenomenal. What's the visual story that you're telling there through your cinematography?
Well, I think one thing that came up with me and Nikki was also in the script was this idea of like the sort of self-hypnosis that happens around the sirening sort of like idea. This idea of like characters, giving away their power, like, oh, I couldn't help myself. They made me do it. All the fucking man blaming, ever like, she made me do it. It's your fault. Like all this nonsense of them being like taking away their own authority, or just and characters doing that, and to try and put the audience in that experience was to try and put the camera like kind of within the scene sometimes. So when Julianne Moore leans into the camera and goes like, I just couldn't imagine life without you. I mean, who would not be? It's hypnotized, and to try and create that space for the audience to have that experience a bit and make it kind of beautiful and insightful and like, oh, I guess something's going on here, like someone's willingly just going along this ride. And there's like two scenes in the scripts where time disappears. You don't know. In episode 1, they come down the stairs and it's like, I can't imagine my life without you, Simone. And they're suddenly at the bottom of the stairs at the beach when they were in the house a moment before. And just trying to create that experience that way for the audience was really fun, and it was a tricky thing to do and also amazing.
I think to the point that you made earlier about like, as great as All About Eve is, it's still written from a male gaze. And, here we are talking about the incredible characters in Sirens written, with this female gaze. What was that like, being able to bring these characters and have people discuss, especially online? I'm sure you've seen them all. Like, are these characters evil? Like, are they monsters? Like, what are their motives? And just having people talk about your people that you've actually created.
Well, I was just thinking about it, actually, the male gaze of this movie. I think Greg just spoke about it. We created this extreme close-up so that the audience feels hypnotized by Michaela. But in the film, when we first meet Eve, she sort of seems like a robot. She seems hypnotized. So the point of view is the other way around.
She's totally false the entire movie. There's not a single emotion that comes out of her that's real.
Yeah, and we are never invested in her point of view, so we aren't experiencing the world like she does. And so, just in something that simple, the way we approach everything on cameras from a different lens. So, I don't know, that made me very excited when I saw that. But I think the Sirens myth, what we know about the Sirens is these monsters on the cliff who are singing and make the sailors crash, and all of that's from Homer's point of view, or it's the sailors' point of view. We don't actually know what the women are singing about or who they are, and I don't know that Sirens, the show, explains that, but we sure do try to shine a light on that. This mythology is wrong. We shouldn't hear this story and assume they're monsters. We should ask, why do we think that? Why are they cast in this role? Why is it so natural and easy to dump our problems and blame on the beautiful women? I don't know. I don't have an answer. I just thought we'd make a show about it.
Well, we found this Margaret Atwood poem called Siren Song, where she does kind of turn the lens and put out this idea in the poem that the song that lures the sailors is actually, instead of an alluring song, it's a song of pain. And you actually hear it a little bit in Homer when he talks about that their song is, they have an unknown wisdom. There's something going on there. And this idea of this pain as alluring to the sailors also, I thought, was very interesting, kind of dark. But with all three of our sirens, when I think about them at the end, and I think about Simone on the cliff, I kind of feel like I think we wanted to, as writers, I care for each of them, and I feel like each of them made the right decision in their situation. And like Eve here, I want to know why. Where does that drive come from? Because I feel in our show, Simone, we know she's fighting for survival. She's running from the trauma that is haunting her, and she really has no choice. She's left go home with your abusive dad or fight and stay here, and that's what she does.
Coming back to Catherine's point, the tone of the show is so great. Like, how are you nailing that in the writer's room? I mean, and ultimately in the edit, like,
are we nailing it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Movies like this remind me why we were so ambitious in our tone. Because trust me, there were meetings that were like, "Can't this be a normal murder mystery?" And we were like, "No, it's not. It's not. It's all about Eve. It's funny. It's dark. It's funny. We're going to ask hard questions. There's twists and reversals. It's Greek mythology. Like, we're going to be heightened and larger." And not everyone recognizes that tone and really understood what we were doing. But it was our job to get everyone on board. And we did a great job with the creative team because we were all making the same show, and that is 99% of the battle. That we're toning this, toning every line of the script, toning all five, building the team, the editors, everyone. We all spoke the same tonal language, and that is the answer. So it's definitely not just the writer's room. It's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when we started to get the footage in post, to me it was very clear what the tone was, even though it was unusual and it wasn't something. It was very hard to think of a comp, but it's funny because this movie sort of is, but it's of such a different era that you couldn't say it's what about it, because Netflix would be like, we don't want a black and white movie from the 50s.
Yeah.
That's Ripley.
That's where they would go. But it was very clear. Yeah, and I mean, we did struggle with the balancing act. Like, how far can we go with the humor? How broad can the comedy be? And certain scenes where it was like there were broader options, I think we pulled back a little and tried to play the humor straighter. But there are like running gags in the show, like the text message thread with all the staff is a gag that runs through the whole series, So it was tricky, but I think we landed it. We certainly tried.
We tried very hard.
I mean, tonally, for me, there's a moment in episode 3 where we have this very powerful sirensing scene between Michaela and Devin in the bathroom, and it's a very kind of heightened, moody scene. And then we cut to the car with a Cardi B song, which is very rated R, and you get a little kind of whiplash. And as we were making it, I'm like, is this insane? Are we insane that we're doing this? But it just, to me, encompassed that tightrope that we wanted to walk, where it could be both very moving and very dark, but we are entertained by silly jokes and bathroom humor. So it makes us laugh throughout, and having both those voices there, which, I would say was a struggle sometimes communicating that and getting it made, with executives and so forth.
It's also a great progression of that joke's already been in the show. You know what I mean? It's like a great progression joke. It's like, of course it's going to be this. Like, you know what I mean? We've now seen that moment of getting hypnotized, and I just love the thing I love about the scripts is the way we can laugh. Laughing at myself and being an idiot is kind of fun in a certain way, but it's not for everybody. Just like these characters are not being looked down on when we're laughing at them, but it's also really hysterical. And I find that, you know what I mean? So the point of view is very important.
Colin, I'm so glad you mentioned the Cardi B, because as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, wow. It's such a great moment. Was that in the script, or it was, yeah?
Yes, it's in the script.
How easy was that to land, a Cardi B needle drop?
You mean the price tag, or just
in general in getting it? Like, if
Yes.
it's in the script, and like, I mean,
Yeah.
I know Netflix is great with getting some songs, but
if you're gonna have a needle drop, I recommend just do the one, because that makes it easier. Because we're like, we only need the Cardi B song. However, we can't have any song but the Cardi B song. It's in the script, and so you pick your battles. But Netflix was excited to get it. They really felt that it was an iconic scene, and I'm glad they felt that way. Yeah. But we did put it in. But sometimes this is a fun trick writers do. But we will put songs into a script if it's really like, we think it's worth the fight, and we won't, So yeah, but every lyric is in there. Yeah.
and you won. Was there a backup just in case? Like,
There was not, Jazz.
everybody's going to go home and watch it. If you haven't seen the show, they're all going to be like, I'm curious now. But since we're talking about, Sirens and All About Eve, All About Eve has got epic quotes that we use in our daily, whenever we're talking, or like we'll send a meme. I'm going to ask every single one of you, what is your favorite quote from All About Eve? Greg, I'm going to start with you.
Oh my God, I'm terrible at remembering jokes. I can remember lines from favorite movies, but I need to watch it 4 more times. There's I can't think of one right now.
Or a scene.
I laughed. Oh, I laugh at. I can't think of one right now, but I laughed many times in the movie. But there's times when I can't remember which. There's some of the stuff about that tirade. I love the intro of the director coming like, oh, this is so and so. Yeah. Anyway, and then later, you just met her. Remember, you just met her just a moment ago. Remember that whole bit was hysterical. Like the sort of navel gazing of the director. It's like setting up the culture and everything he's about, and it's just so just detached was hilarious.
Love that.
Yeah, I love the constant struggle of who the creative lead is. So when the writer says, when is the piano going to realize it didn't write the concerto? I really like that.
That's, yeah.
You just stole mine. No, it was a good one. The one I'm still thinking about is when she says, "I just saw the heart of an artichoke." Do you guys know that line? Yeah, stared into the heart of an artichoke. I'm just been puzzling over that one, and it just sticks in my mind. I don't know if I have something brilliant to say, but it was a great line.
I liked when someone described Eve as being on her knees, and there was like that she was apologizing on her knees was a little. But the thing I think I'm going to keep thinking about with the film is, it's a beautiful performance from Bette Davis. But when she says, "I'm a woman," when she's talking about what it means to be a woman. And that 6 p.m. you have to look up and see your husband, and I think I don't know. I think that there's a darkness and a depth to that I'm going to keep thinking about.
Yeah. It reminded me actually of what you wrote in episode 4. Do you want to be me? Michaela's talking to Simone, and like, do you like what you see in my life? Just kind of like the requirements of being Michaela seemed kind of similar to what
what Margot was talking about.
No, I love that. And for those who haven't yet seen Sirens, how would you describe it so that they can all go home and find it on Netflix?
It's a lot like All About Eve. No, it's a very contemporary story. It takes place over Labor Day weekend. It's a character piece, but much like the movie, it is about three powerful women who are sort of jockeying for position. It's about class, it's about family, it's about sisters, it's funny, it's dark, it's a little bit about Greek mythology, the costumes are gorgeous, the editing is gorgeous, cinematography is gorgeous, the writing is very excellent, and the cast is fantastic, starring Julianne Moore, Megan Fahey, and Millie Alcock, and we're so proud of it.
Amazing. It is an incredible show, and All About Eve is an iconic movie. And I want to say thank you all so much for coming out tonight. Thank you for that incredible insight into All About Eve and Sirens. And thank you again to the team at Variety and to Barco.
Thank you, Jazz.
And Soho House, too. Thank you.
Jazz.
Thank
Just
you.
coming up.